Welcome to the Headliners. I'm your host, Edwin Beche, CEO and founder of Helen Super App. Today, my guest is Brenden Kumarasamy. I'm gonna make sure the name. I'm gonna find out the right way to say it. But Brenden is the founder of MasterTalk. He coaches ambitious executive, like entrepreneur, to be the top 1% communicators, like in their industry. He also has a popular YouTube channel called MasterTalk with the goal of providing free access to communication tools for everyone in the world. Brandon, how are you?
Very good, Ed. How about you, man?
Good, good, good. Good to have you, man. How are you? I know we spoke like almost a few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, right? You've been good?
Yeah. Oh yeah, life has been great, man. And
That-
hoping the same for you as well.
yes, yes. It's been good, kind of traveling around. I was kind of traveling for a few days. So, but I'm back. It's good. It's kind of different energy when you travel. You get to see. I don't know. It feels just different when you travel. Have you traveled like maybe in the last month or so, kind of thing? I know with the
Not in
pen.
the
Hmm.
not in the last month, but next month I'm leaving for the States in a few days and I'll
Okay.
be there for 2 weeks.
Where you heading?
I'm heading to Florida and then after Pittsburgh and then after that Orlando and there's one other place I had to be at, Columbus, Ohio.
Okay. This is for work though, right?
Yeah, well, sort of. It is for work,
Hmm.
but it's conferences, like attending different conferences.
Hmm.
So yeah.
That's good. Let's do this for people that they they maybe they never heard of you, like they never heard of Brandon. Um, can you give like a little bit history, kind of just kind of go, let's go way back, kind of like where you grew up, childhood memory, kind of stuff like that, and just kind of
Sure.
just introduce yourself.
It's cool. I thought you were asking me to go back before BC. I was like, okay, let's go. So it all started with cavemen. No, I'm kidding. So I'm born and raised in a city called Montreal, Ed. So in Montreal, I'm still there. I still live there with my family. And I had to study French. That's how I learned how to speak the language because you need to know French in Montreal. So my whole life, not only did I struggle with communication and presentations, I was presenting in a language I didn't even know it. And then the way that MasterTalk came to be was later in life when I went to university. I went to business school for college and I did these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So while other guys my age were playing rugby or football or basketball, I wasn't one of those guys. I did presentations competitively, and that's how I learned how to speak. But then as I got older, I started to coach a lot of the students, and that's when I had the idea for the YouTube channel Master Talk because I felt that all the information that was in my mind wasn't available for free on the internet. And here we are a few years later.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I know, like you said, for what was you said for nerd. So with this also with the communication, was it part also like where you learn about like debate, like debating, or is it more just kind of presentation kind of thing?
Similar. So basically what a case competition is, not a lot of people know what it is.
Mhm.
It's similar to like a sports draft. So let's say you want to get into the NBA. What happens? You go to a Division 1 school, then talent scouts come and look for you and then they take the best talent, they draft them into the NBA or any other sports leagues. This is the same rule but in business school. So a lot of executives at like Amazon, IBM, McKinsey, what they would do is they would host these competitions. They would actually pay for all of it. And then a bunch of 19, 20, 21 year old kids were be given business cases. So I'll give an example. Let's say Nike's opening a new store
Yeah.
and they don't know where to open it. Brandon, Ed, should I open it in Portugal or Italy? That's an example of a business problem. So we need to do all the analysis and make a recommendation. So what happens is you only have 3 hours to do that, and then you present to the actual executives of the company. So
Mm.
the reason these things existed was to recruit the best talent out of college and business school to give them jobs before they finish school.
Okay. Okay. So it's like, yeah, so it's like almost kind of they're getting in early to kind of capture these kids who have this knowledge that they can pinpoint. That's awesome. So so you got out of college. So now you speak French, you speak English, of course. Um, Do you have, for people like, I know, like for people that speak two different languages, do you have that time? Maybe there's a time which here's maybe here's I'll do. When you have a dream, do you dream in English or do you dream in French?
I dream and think in English, but I'm fluent in French for sure.
Okay, okay, so that's good. So there's no like, if someone's speaking something in English, you don't have like in the back of your head like trying to translate in French, and then kind of you see what I'm saying? Or someone speaking French, then you gotta translate in English. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like I know it's kind of for people with different languages probably can be tricky a little bit. I
I
don't
do
know.
the opposite a lot. So I do when people speak to me in French, I sometimes translate it in my head in English, but I don't do it the other way around.
Oh, okay, okay, that's good.
Because English is my first language,
Yeah,
French
yeah.
is my second one, and Tamil is my third one.
Oh, okay. So you're speaking of what was the other one?
Tamil.
Tamil. What is that?
Tamil is like a dialect in India and Sri Lanka. It's also spoken pretty wildly in Singapore, and
Okay.
it's a language that's based in Sri Lanka and India. Basically, it's
Okay.
my mother tongue. It's what my parents speak.
Okay. All right. That's perfect. That's making your parents proud when you speak their tongue language. That's right. That's awesome. What gets you excited about life?
So many things, Ed. I mean, I think for me the biggest thing is doing something important with my life.
Yeah.
Other people get excitement from different things, like, eating at a restaurant or
Mhm. Yeah.
spending time with their family or going hiking. And all these things are amazing. But for me, the number one thing that drives me the most excitement is doing something super cool, building something amazing. And it's cool. I get to do that with MasterTalk at such a young age. I semi-retired at 25, replaced all my income. I don't
Yeah.
work for anybody. I'm the CEO.
Yeah.
And I can spend all my time just doing interviews like this, having discussions. And that's what I felt in my past corporate life. I was a technology consultant at IBM for many years,
Yeah.
and I loved it. IBM's been great to me. They were an
Hmm.
excellent company. But I think what I felt was sometimes I would go into meetings and I would say, why am I spending an hour in this meeting when I could use that same hour being on a podcast and sharing a message with 1,000 people or 100 people or even 7 people? It doesn't even matter.
Hmm.
And that's really what gets me excited. And I get to do that every single day. So you'll always, and I get to start every day at 10 a.m. I don't have to start at 7 a.m. Because when I used to do tech implementations, my God, sometimes I would have to wake up at like 4 a.m. because
Hmm.
of the time zone differences. I was doing like tech implementations in Hong Kong, and I was like, shit, this is not. Or in
Yeah.
like in what is that in Geneva in Switzerland. So it
Yeah.
wasn't super fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mentioned about something working for. Um, I know you did also like work for this company, like investment. What is it called? Front Row Venture, right? And then to IBM. Um, from that experience, just kind of working from there, did you pick anything from those company adding to this master talk? You're like, there's this company culture, maybe from kind of learning from that experience that you added to the master talk.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. So I would say the three key professional experiences I had was one at Price Waterhouse Coopers. I was an accountant there, one of the big fours.
Hmm.
That's one. I worked there for a year and a half. The second experience was Front Row Ventures. I was a venture capitalist for
Hmm.
around a year, and I'm still involved with them. And then the third piece is, working at IBM. I was an SCP Success Factors consultant for like 2 3 years.
What
So
is
those
that?
are the. It's basically like a big technology you basically implement it in different companies.
Okay.
And I would say the biggest learnings I got from each one, the biggest one from all three, frankly, was knowing how to talk to executives.
Yeah.
So when you're in a consulting role, you're usually 22, 23, but the client is usually in their 40s, 50s, and they're senior project managers. And you're the one dealing with the relationship. Nobody's helping you.
Yeah.
So you gotta learn to be mature really fast. And front row, I got a lot of experience with technology CEOs, which is probably 20% of my client base today, where
Yeah.
I learned how to help them pitch to raise money from venture capitalists. That's where a lot of my business started.
We're gonna need to talk. I have this super app I'm working, so you're gonna teach me how to talk to these investors, and
Absolutely.
I gotta figure how to talk to them, take them off their script because a lot of them like almost kind of using the same script every time I talk to them. I'd be like, I just heard this question again. It's almost kind of anyway. So that's funny. Um, what did you learn more? in the venture or kind of helping this startup? Did you learn something that you find is almost similar for all these startup founders? And even in your training them, yeah.
Absolutely. I think the experience that I've had is very unique, and which is really interesting to think about it. Like I've coached all these people and all the venture students, but I started MasterTalk when I was only 22. So
Mhm,
it's an interesting set of unique experiences that helped me made be the person I am today.
mhm,
I would say the biggest thing, Ed, is I understand the language that venture capitalists speak in. Because at the end of the day, you could be a startup with the best idea in the world, but if you can't message that pitch in a way that a VC will look at you and go, "Oh, that's a great idea," you won't get the money.
yeah.
So I think for me, I've been on both sides. So I'm a startup founder technically,
Mhm,
just out of the tech space, and then I've been also on the side of the VC, the person writing the check. So because of that, when I advise my CEO clients, it's probably 20% of my business on not just speaking really well, smiling and vocal tone projection, but also how to use the languages, the words that they'll get excited about. Let me give you a small example to make this more concrete.
mhm,
So, for example, what a lot of startup founders do when they talk about the market, they just go, "Yeah, the market is $100 billion or $25 billion," and they move on. Whereas what the investor actually wants to know is why is that market exciting? So you're not supposed to just say 100 billion. You could say it's 100 billion and it's growing 30% a year and there's very little competition. And the reason that it's growing is because there's increased consumer demand. There's no one meeting that need. I'm just explaining something really quickly.
yeah.
I'll give you an example of a company. Let's take Netflix. When Reed Hastings, the CEO and founder, pitched it to VCs, it made sense because with the introduction of broadband internet connections,
Yeah.
let's say in like the early 2000s, we're getting into a place now where online streaming is actually becoming more realistic. That the end consumer, the majority of consumers, can actually stream video online. So, because of that increase in broadband speed, what's interesting now is now the market's growing really, really, really quickly for online streaming. So Netflix is in the right place at the right time, and they can capture all that market because nobody else is building that.
Yeah.
So that's just an example.
That's awesome. So let's go back into to Master Talk, right? So with the Master Talk, where you have, so you work with, let's pick this first. Let's pick startup before we expand to a lot of other customers that you help. When you start talking to a founder of a startup, normally it's just not only for tech industry. You're open to help startup in any kind of, it can be business to business, consumer to I mean business to consumer, whatever, tech, like wide range. When you go in, when maybe this, do you pitch them or do they pitch you saying like, hey, I need your help? And then from there, do you get in and be like, okay, this is that? Do you have like a, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? That's what we're gonna be doing. Like it's almost like a blueprint for you to just be like, hey, I come in, I'm gonna help you, but he's gonna start 1, 2, 3. Or it's just like, how do you do it? How do you pitch them first, or do they pitch you to help them?
For sure. So let's break a few of these things down.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing I've learned at being in business is that the person my YouTube channel attracts, which is what I started doing just for free, versus who becomes clients is very, very different. Right? So people who watch, let's say, a ton of my YouTube videos, they generally can't afford a communication coach, which is my mission, by the way. How do I get everyone to have access to these tools? But now the more interesting question becomes who actually pays me? Who pays the bills? Because I write a 5-figure check for my production. It's not cheap to run the suits and the
Yeah.
videos with my team. So who pays me is what I found the people who can ROI really quickly on spending on a communication coach. You're a great example of it. So let's go into my top three clients. One is the entrepreneur CEO. Entrepreneur CEOs selling all the time. All the time. Even if they're not the lead salesperson anymore, they're always selling, whether they're on the media. So if they know how to communicate more effectively, they'll make their money back so quickly. It's like probably 30 days they already make their money back. So that's one.
Mhm.
The second type of person is the coach. So the coach who's like me, but not a communication coach. Think career coach,
Mhm.
life coach, love coach. those people are not very good at selling offers on strategy calls. So when they get on a prospect call, let's say this is a prospecting call, they're not very good at dissecting the challenges of that person and talking in a very mature way.
Yeah.
So that people look at you and go, yeah, that person's worth 3,000. That person's worth 10,000. Whereas if you go, people are gonna be I'm
that
not.
that include me. Be like, yeah.
So yeah, so that's number two. And then the third one, which I would say is 50% of my clients, is the corporate executive. And the reason that's such a big client base is because they don't pay for it. So what happens is, let's say Salesforce is and IBM are some of my top clients. So let's say a manager at Salesforce, let's say he's making 120, 130 grand a year. His next promotion is probably $20,000 salary increase, right? 30,000, because tech it goes up really fast,
Yeah.
especially in senior world. So for them, spending 3, 5,000 once to make extra 20 grand a year, that's like what, over 10 years, it's an
Yeah.
extra
Yeah.
$200,000 after
Yeah.
tax, maybe 100.
Yeah.
They can easily 20, 30. And the best part is some of these companies, you invest out of your own pocket, but then you go back to the company, you say, hey, I'm investing in communication training. Some of them refund you most of it or all of it.
Yeah.
So that's the most, and that's why LinkedIn is my main lead gen source, because
Yeah.
everyone's a professional here.
Okay, that's perfect. So with this one, do you also, is this like an ongoing thing, right? Because I'm thinking like this communication of like MasterTalk um, company that you have, I'm thinking this is not like a one time. So because as you know, it's not like, oh, you train them, you say, how long is the training anyway? How long is it?
Right, Ed. So everyone has different models, by the way, in coaching. That's what's
Mhm,
fun
mhm,
because that's what I love about business. It has its cons and challenges, but I would say the funnest is you get to create your own rules. It's like your
okay,
own society that you get to build. So my model is very different from other coaches, which
mhm,
is we don't take a lot of people. Our practice is very, very small. We're talking 100 clients, max, max, max.
yeah,
Right, because I work with all of them myself, so we
yeah,
don't hire other facilitators, and I don't like that model because it ruins the product. So for me, it's special service for special people. So I interview people myself. I don't do any B2B, very little B2B. Maybe like if a company, like I have a couple of corporate clients,
mhm,
if I have very tight relationships with them and it's to give workshops. So a one time workshop, I'll do that's 5% of the business.
mhm,
Most of it is people come to my free training, right? Rockstarcommunicator.com. I do a free workshop every 2 weeks, and
mhm,
then people come on that call, and the people who love that workshop, which is most people, they book a free call with us.
yeah,
And then what happens is that free call is what I call an interview call. So I listen to them, and then if they're a good fit, they go into my 90-day program. So it's like 8 to 10 top level executives, coaches, entrepreneurs, and it's a very small group. Like you're talking 8 to 10 people every 2 months.
yeah.
And then the best students from that group, we have a year-long program, and they work with me for multiple years. But not everyone qualifies for it, so it's only the best people in that group.
Okay, okay. That's what I was about to also to kind of see how long did, because it has to be almost kind of ongoing thing, because I'm thinking, as you know, like maybe just me, I'm more of I need like a refresher, right? It's almost like, okay, I took the class now for this month, and then 8 months from now I'm like, ooh. So it's almost kind of like I need that refresher thing, instead of just saying like, oh, otherwise maybe, unless it's something I've been using from that training, I'll be like, okay, this I already started using all every day, or kind of every week or whatever. So that's good. So you have the 90 days. For 90 days, is this 90 days like every day? Is it 90 day once a week? How does the format look like?
Right. So it's 90 days once a week. You got a 12 weeks, which is
Hmm.
3 months.
Hmm.
And then what happens is it's once a week 90-minute calls, and then it's three one-on-one calls with me. And then we put them into groups. So they meet other high level executives in
Hmm.
our group, and they network with each other and they practice communication. So it's fun. So
Yeah.
that's the piece. The other piece that you talked about that I think is important as a lesson for the audience
Hmm.
is the whole idea of the mindset of the client. So you have the right mindset, right? You're like the ideal client because you're going, I need to keep working on this because you see the ROI. Like if I keep investing in my communication, I make more money. I'll just keep
Yeah.
getting communication coaching. Not
Exactly.
everyone is like that though, Ed, right? Like some people, it's more, and that's okay too. Well, if I do this 90-day program at let's say 3 grand, and I make my next salary promotion, that's enough for me. And that's okay because
Mhm.
it's a win-win. They got their increase, and I got, the fees to work with me, and I got them the result. So that's why we separate both of those programs,
Mhm.
because we want only people who are really, really committed to do the year long. That's why I never advertise it. You've probably never heard of my year long program, because I
Mhm.
only advertise it to my ecosystem, because they have to pass the 90-day one. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So with this, with the master talk, so not only that teaching executive, but this kind of branch out also into to public speaking, right? To people who are either in their field. I'm not sure if, like, when you say public speaking, because public speaking can branch into so many things. Either people who are giving talks at conference, people who are, maybe it can be entertainers, maybe let's say stand-up comedian, right? I don't know if this can fit in their thing, like, because it's about presentation, right? It can be maybe a preacher. I don't know, something. It can be someone like that. Does this fit something like that, or is this only geared toward people in corporate, like, for, like, maybe either motivating their teams, or talking to their management or something? How does this benefit? Like, you see what I'm trying to say? Kind of, can
One
this be
one
used?
thousand percent,
Yeah.
absolutely. Ed. So you're right. What you touched upon is that communication can apply in any industry, like literally any. And it's like, the analogy I use is like juggling 18 balls at the same time. One of those balls is eye contact, one of those balls is body language, one of those balls is smiling. So it gets really confusing to
Mhm.
figure out how to do this. So the way our method is structured is, I call them my three pillars of CA. Right? So one of them is presentation mastery. It doesn't matter who you are. You can be a pastor, or you just got to know how to present. You're going to say filler words, you're going to do
Yeah.
ums and ahs. That's
Yeah.
one. The second one's leadership mastery, which is, okay, what are the areas of a leader, a CEO, that we're not thinking about in our communication?
Mhm.
How are we answering questions on a podcast, in a boardroom, on sales calls? How are we giving feedback to our teams, even if we're running a church? And then the third piece is relationship building. How are we using smile and presence to influence other people and enroll them into our vision? Those are the three pillars I think are the most important, Ed. But to your point, I think for me, what I've landed on is usually stand up comedians and preachers, even if they're doing amazing work and they need communication, they usually don't invest money into it, right? Because either they don't have it because they're getting started, or they don't see the value in coaching. That's what I've found from experience personally. So what I do instead with that type of people, because I still want to add value to them, so I said, go watch my YouTube videos. I got 200 free videos there. Go watch that. They're all for you. And then my executives, I'll talk about my offer and what I have.
Okay, okay, that's good. Yeah, I was thinking, because, like, with the experience, just the little experience I have in comedy, um, like, where we as a comedian, all we care is an open mic. We care about open mics. Like, I feel like if I do stand up, like, open mics, that's it. I don't need anything as long I can practice my joke there. I don't need anything. But, like, looking at it, this also with the communication, maybe you might be able to not teach you to be funny, by kind of the communication angle of it, kind of little bit helps you with your presentation when you're on stage. Um, so, like, I guess, what's the in a way, I'm trying to figure what's the biggest challenge with, like, public speaking
For
in the.
sure, Ed.
Mhm.
A lot of people think it's fear, but the
Mhm.
truth is, I don't think it's fear. I think it's motivation.
Mhm.
Like, a lot of us aren't motivated enough to work on it because we don't know why it's important. So if we're not motivated enough, we don't get the results. Right? But if we're motivated enough, even if we're scared, we'll push through the fear. And I'll give you a question to help us figure out the motivation. The question is simply this: how would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? How would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? Or how would the world change if you were an exceptional communicator? What these questions help us do, Ed, is it helps us imagine new possibility. Because we dream about our vacations, the expensive things we want to buy. When was the last time we dreamed about a world in which we're a better communicator in it? And that's what I would say is the biggest problem for most of us, is we
Mm.
really need to start dreaming, whether it's being a better mother for our children, whether it's being a better CEO and getting more sales and motivating our people, or whether it's getting your next job promotion. When we start to dream about what's possible, we start to get motivated to do it.
In my head, as I'm listening to you, like being a better communicator, I'm like, you need to teach these politicians too how to be. But again, the politician is almost like a funny thing. I always look at it. Some of them they operate in a way where they care, and some of them like anything goes. So it doesn't matter. Anything kind of goes. Um, does it matter as a better communicator? Does it matter? Like I'm trying to see the language barrier. Like okay, let's say someone is like, hey, can someone take your class? Even like let's say I live in Mexico and my whole language is like I don't speak English. I speak English. I speak English, but my surroundings speak Spanish, and I talk. Also, I speak Spanish. Can I take this MasterTalk class be and also transfer that into me talking to my people in Spanish in Mexico? Or does it
Absolutely.
say like, hey, you have to be like an English speaking? Or they
I,
got,
I mean, knowing how to speak English is definitely a prerequisite, but you don't need to be great at English. A lot of our clients have very thick accents,
Mhm.
whether it's Indian accents, whether it's Tunisian
Yeah.
accent. That's okay. I think the big thing is, are you motivated to actually get better? If you're really motivated, then do it. And what I always say is like, don't even worry about the program, Ed. I would start with the free training, right? I do a free workshop every 3 weeks. My next one is in 90 minutes, actually.
Mhm.
So people can jump on that. You just go to rockstarcommunicator.com and and they're live. This is not like a recorded webinar. Like
Mhm.
I'm on it and I'm coaching people. So people can get a flavor. That's free. Like that's 100% free. You just register, you show up, and
Yeah.
then those people, the people who are interested, will talk to them on a private one-on-one call. Yeah.
Give the website again. What's the name of the website?
rockstarcommunicator.com.
Blackstarcommunicator.com.
That's it.
Perfect. So with the communication, and I know that you don't want to water down your brand, like where you deal with everybody by yourself, right? So are you looking to end up saying, hey, I know from this you have trained the best people ever. Are you able to end up uh, not franchising it, but more maybe graduating people and be like, hey, now you can become also a trainer like me? Or is they like, no, I don't I don't want to do that. Just kind
May-
of water down it. Yeah.
Maybe in the future, Ed. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you
Mhm.
why, because I think that rationale is important. Coaching is every business is different, right? So let's say we take a McDonald's, right? So what made Ray Kroc so successful in the early days of McDonald's, whenever they would franchise, that system can be taught to other people,
Yeah.
and then you just take the profits off of each location. That's how you build the business that Ray Kroc has done.
Mhm.
That is true. You can do that in coaching as well. Dale Carnegie has done that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But here's my problem with it. The problem with it is the the level of quality of a coach could vary significantly. Like significantly. Like even if you have like two coaches in communication, one of them could be charging $1,000 and get shit results. Somebody else could be charging $10,000 and getting terrible results. Somebody
Mhm.
else could be charging 3,000 and be like the best in the world. So it's really hard to delegate coaching to other facilitators whose quality isn't as strong as you. Because how most of my business comes to me, Ed, is not through podcasts.
Yeah.
That's probably like 10% of my clients. Most of my 50% is my biggest lead source. And I'm sure you can guess what it is.
Mhm.
Referrals. Because in coaching, if
Yeah.
you're really, really good, that's why
Mhm.
most of my business is referrals. I don't spend any money on ads. I
Mhm.
just get somebody results. Let's say I made you into a superstar communicator. You're going to tell your friends about me. You're going to be like, yeah, Brenden knows what he's talking about. He's good.
Yeah.
Right. and that's how I've built my book over time. So I would say for me, in I what's nice about coaching is you could build $1 million business with only 3 employees. That's what's nice. So let me get to that level first, which
Yeah.
I'm getting there. It'll probably take 2-3 more years at this point, and then after that, I might see facilitation. Because at the end of the day, like, because I charge like it's minimum 3,000 to work with me, right?
Yeah.
So for that, like, if you have like 300 clients, 400, which is easy for me to deliver alone, or with, but well, it's me and my business partner. Like, you're doing fine, and it's 90% profit margin. So yeah, every business is different.
Okay. So with this, when they register with the 90 days, they pay the 3,000,
Yep.
and then after that, they have the prolonged, like, like 1 year or whatever. Is that more extra fees, or is just the 3,000 kind of cover everything?
Correct. So there are extra fees, but I'll tell you right now off the bat, because nobody asked me that on podcast. Most
Yeah.
people don't actually qualify for it. So what happens
Mhm.
is the 90-day program. Let's say there's we take like 12, 15 people. Like, we have another one starting in like 30 days, and we already
Mhm.
have like 9 people signed up. So we probably like 5 spots left or something.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then what happens is, with that group, we're only going to take, like, out of 15 people, Ed, we're going to take 3 or 4 people and eliminate everyone else.
Yeah.
Because we really want people who are really hardworking, people who make this a priority, or else they won't make more money from it. Like, my guys in my advanced programs,
Mhm.
they pay me nothing, like maybe 5-6 grand, and they make 100, like, in a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Like, some of those guys make like $100,000 salary increases because that program is different than my entry level. Yeah.
Okay. I guess with this, you're talking about for uh, for a startup founders, they might not understand or see big benefit out of it. Not just to see, maybe they can see the benefit. Maybe it might be talking about just funding, like, right? It always come back to money. Can they afford that $6,000 or whatever? Although it has a huge value at a later stage, but it's different from someone who already has a corporate job and they're already making like a salary. So be like, hey, I'll pay this and I'll pay kind of. But on kicking people out of the program because you only want to find this only dedicated. So you only find the people who are really dedicated. What happens if someone they are not really dedicated, but they are willing to pay the extra money to just continue?
No, it doesn't
No?
work. I just tell them to hire another coach because everyone's different, right? Right, Ed.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not in coaching for money. I was already making a lot of money at IBM.
yeah,
That's not the reason I'm here. I do well financially,
yeah.
right? But for me, it's really about, I want to work with people who are serious, like people who
Mhm.
want to get better. Like, I have people who have closed. One guy, I who's my new client, but I won't name. Like, he closed like 120 million dollars in real estate deals in the last year. So I could have easily charged him $30,000 for a one-on-one package,
Yeah,
easily.
yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, "You're not ready for that.
Mhm.
Join my $3,000 group." He's like, "What? $3,000 is nothing." I said, "If you don't take it seriously, I'll fire you in a week." And he's like, "Oh shit, okay."
Yeah,
Right? And that guy's like very, very successful. Right? So that's my mentality. It's always take care of the people, and the people who are A's, give them the best results. Because at the end of the day, that guy, it's not about the 3,000,
mhm,
right? It's about making him be the best.
mhm.
And I just help him to make sure he gets the result. And then what's he going to do after? He's going to tell all his friends about me. He has so
Yeah,
many great partners in real estate. He's like, yeah, Brendan's the best. And that's really the point that I want to drive. Everyone has different models. I don't just take money for the sake of it. That's why everyone does an interview with me before getting into the
yeah,
program. But anyways, that's why we say go to the free training. You don't have to worry about the program. That's
yeah, yeah, yeah,
what I would say.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. On the so with this, I know you have done a lot of this, either presentation. You have books also. You written books?
I do recommend books. I'm not
No,
right.
no,
I'm
I'm
not
talking
writing.
about your own book. Did you write any book yet? No, not yet.
Maybe in 10 years. That's my
Okay,
goal right now.
okay. So my mind was going kind of all over the place. I'm thinking also, do you think a program like this, the Master Talk, can benefit if it's introduced to like either high school or college, something like that?
For sure. So let's go through a couple of things because you mentioned the startup founders as well.
Yeah.
So here's what I would say around the startup founders, Ed. The advice I always give them, people who are thinking about communication, because it depends on the season of life that you're in. But I
Mhm.
would say anyone who's doing $100,000 or more in their business, even if it's not profits, just net like top line revenue, I always recommend to invest in coaching if they're not good communicators. And I'll tell you why. Because as the business is scaling, are your communication skills that's funny. Are your communication skills scaling with the business? So what I mean by that is let's say a business owner is doing 100 grand a year, they're usually doing all parts of the delivery: sales, marketing, fulfillment, ascension. But when the business scales, they have to start delegating to other people. Let's say at 5, 6, 700K a year. So at that level, when you're at that point in the business, the next level to ask yourself is okay, the employees that you're delegating to, are you sharp with your communication? Because when you create standard operating procedures and you go, hey, this is how you're supposed to do the job, if you don't communicate effectively, they're going to look at you and go, what? And that creates a lot of inefficiencies in the business. And that's going to cost you a shit ton of money. So the advice I always give startups is assume your business is going to go well. Assume
Yeah.
the business is
Yeah.
going to be successful. And if it's going to be successful, you have to ask yourself if the business is going to do $10 million a year in 10 years and that's your goal, you need to optimize for that CEO. Because if you're not ready to be that person, you'll lose. That's why Tony Robbins says the biggest bottleneck in any business is not the employees, it's
Yeah.
not the cash flow, is its leader.
That's so awesome. That's awesome. Sorry, like they're doing some construction outside my place. I don't know if you heard that noise. It was like it's like a loud, annoying noise. Um, so let's go. I know I wanted to ask this question before we go kind of deep also into the founders, startup founders. Presentation, becoming a better communicator with this master talk. There's a difference between online presentation or live presentation, right? And I know you're thinking about like doing a TED Talks, right? So is this is this can this be is it like a different feel? You like you become like okay, you master now you're master talk. Is this the same communication or is it like a way is it like a different way of kind of approaching this whenever you're giving talk in public or you're giving talk in online version?
Right, for sure, Ed. So what I would say is there's three key differences between online and offline. The first one is eye contact. So when you're online, all you have to do is look in one place, which is the camera lens,
Yep.
right? So even if you're looking at 1 or 10,000 people, you just want to look in that one area. Whereas when you're in person, you want to move your head to the different people that you're speaking with so that you get the result.
Yep.
That's one. Number two is energy. Let's face it, Ed, it's a lot easier to show up with energy
Yep.
when you're in person. Because when you're in person, you can hug people, shake their hand, jump up and down. You have a lot more energy, and it's a lot easier for you to show up that way.
Mhm.
Much easier, right? But the problem is that in online, you're just alone. There's nobody around. So what's my advice? My advice is bring more energy in person and transfer that energy as much as possible onto the online world. Number three is accessibility. If you
Mhm.
want feedback from your audience, it's a lot easier in person, Ed, because all you have to do is you go up to them and you say, hey, what advice do you have for me? And you just get lunch with them.
Yeah.
Online, it's very tricky because there's a lot more friction
Yeah.
on the call.
Yeah.
So what you do essentially is you just go, okay, well, the call just ends. So what you want to do instead is you want to get on phone calls with your audience so you could build better relationships with them.
Okay. Okay. What would you suggest in a I know in a like I've mentioned before in the comedy industry, like when I was doing a lot of comedy, for me to stay ready is for me is to be doing open mics. Like I had to do open mic like maybe like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to just stay ready, right? With this master talk, what do you suggest or what exercise can people just to get them just be ready? You know what I'm saying? Like let's say, hey, I'm presenting maybe next week or I'm presenting. So for them to just be ready and not to be like, oh, I gotta get ready now. So I gotta, what exercise I would say, or what thing can they keep them ready?
Absolutely, Ed. So let's talk about my easy threes.
Mhm,
What are the three daily exercises that people can do to
mhm,
get results in their communication?
mhm.
Quickly. Number one is the random word exercise. All you have to do is pick a random word like trophy, like master, like talk, like uh, like mousetrap, and give random presentations out of thin air. And the reason this is such an effective exercise is if you could make sense out of nonsense, you could make sense out of anything. And that's really the benefit of this. That's the benefit of this exercise. So that's number one. Number two is the question drill. We get asked questions all the time, Ed, in our life on a podcast, at school, at work, on prospecting calls, podcast interviews, the list goes on. And a lot of us are reactive to those questions. We wait for the question to come. We go, oh, I didn't think about that. Like when I started guesting on shows, probably what, 3 years ago,
Yeah,
somebody asked me, where does the fear of communication come from? And I was like, I don't know, man. San Diego, Los Angeles?
yeah,
You tell me. So
yeah,
I got caught off guard. So instead, what I did is I became more proactive. So every day for 5 minutes a day, I would write down one question that I thought the world would ask me about my expertise. Introverts, fear of communication, how to get rid of ums and ahs. I did that every day for a year. If you do that every day for a year, Ed, you'll have answered 365 questions about your business, your products, your services, your expertise. You'll
yeah,
be bulletproof. Nobody does that.
yeah,
That's two. And then three, so simple, nobody does it. If you're a business owner listening to this, I guarantee you this will make you money, and most of you aren't doing it. Take out your phone and send video messages to your existing clients. That's it. When it's their birthday, when it's their holiday, even if you suck at communication. That's how I actually make most of my money. That's it. I go to my existing clients
mhm,
and I go, "Hey, happy birthday! I hope you're having a wonderful day." And no sales pitch, nothing. And they always reply with, "Oh, Brenden, you're so nice. I just remembered there's this vice president I was supposed to introduce you to, and your video message reminded me to send you an intro. Boom, intro, make 5 grand in a day. That's it. Nobody does it.
that's so awesome.
Nobody likes money. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, Ed. Nobody likes money.
That's so awesome. Yeah, I like that. I like that. So, um, let's go also into I know from people like maybe like either taking this, they might be like, hey, I don't want to spend $3,000 for Master Talk. I would rather just buy a book and learn. What's the difference from there, um, from taking this or just reading a book? And you understand what I'm trying to say? Yep. And also maybe out of that, uh, let's give a shout out to a book. Like, what book would you suggest for them to read if they are cheap? They don't want to spend this money.
Well, I don't really see it as cheap. I think if you don't spend the money, I think you're crazy because you're the CEO of a company. But I'd say for most people listening to this podcast, it makes sense for you not to spend 3 grand. Okay, I'll tell you why. There's different seasons for different people, Ed.
Yeah,
Different seasons. So let's say the first part of the season is you just got out of high school,
yeah,
college, university. You have a lot of student debt. You're just getting your career started. I never recommend hiring somebody like me at the beginning, unless you like saved up a ton of money and you're really smart with your finances. I always say go to Toastmasters. Toastmasters is like 100, $200 a year, super cheap. You'll get that accountability and you could start working on it. And my videos are free on YouTube. That's why I created them for most of the population. Watch my YouTube videos, check that out. Go to my free training, right? That's free as well. So that doesn't even cost it doesn't even cost you $10. It costs you
yeah,
nothing, just your time. So that's a great way to get started. The second one is the book, right? So the book recommendation. I like Thirst by Scott Harrison. So I'll repeat that again. Thirst by Scott Harrison. So Scott Harrison is the CEO of Charity Water. It's a
mhm,
nonprofit he started to help people gain access to clean water.
mhm,
Scott's an incredible human being. He is not only learned communication and is a master storyteller, he applied a lot of things we taught today at scale. He's raised hundreds of millions of dollars for his nonprofit. It's wild. I highly recommend that book. I think it's an exceptional case study of someone who is an exceptional storyteller. That's number two. The
Mhm.
third part that you asked me is, well, Brenden, what's the difference between this and hiring me? I would say the difference is time. So when you're getting started in your career, Ed, let's say people are listening to this, your money is more valuable than your time
Yeah.
because you don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you don't need a lot of money for that to switch. But when you start making like 75, 100, 125K a year, your hourly rate goes to like 30, 40, 50. At some point, you'll get into 100, 200, $300 an hour. So when you get to that point, your time becomes super valuable. So at that point, it's like, okay, do you want to read books and waste 6 months of your life in a Toastmasters meeting where you're not even speaking most of the 2 hours?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or are you going to hire a coach and use money to speed up time? So I get clients results in 3 weeks max, right? So people are paying me for to save time instead of spending years on this. They'll get the result in like 3, 4 weeks. And that's really the difference that I would say. But it's not for everybody. Like for somebody like you as a CEO of a company, it makes sense because if you spend 3 grand, but if you were 20 years younger, I wouldn't say that. I would say, Ed, you're getting started your business,
Yeah.
go to Toastmasters. But now you're more mature. I'm just using it as an example,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right. For you, it makes sense, but most people listening, it might not make sense.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm 22, man.
Yeah, you're like 19, right? Yeah. Sorry, I forgot. Then in that case, don't hire a coach yet. Just get started with.
uh, but so let's switch gear a little bit. Let's talk about your experience in venture funding, right? When dealing with startup founders, either they are struggling with funding, so they are not able to approach the master talk first, where they learn all the communication. What do you? I guess what I'm trying to say is like, what do you suggest them like when they come to venture capital, like kind of the company that you still deal with, like when they come to pitch to, should they do okay, let's do this, let's scratch that, let's go back. What I'm trying to figure is, let's say they contact you like, hey, I'm not gonna be able to afford the $3,000 right now, but I just need your help to look at my pitch before I pitch to this venture capital. Are you able also to kind of look at their pitch, also be like, oh no, you should do this, you should do this, or do you still need to be like, hey, because you're gonna send the pitch deck, and also you need to communicate. Do you kind of be like, okay, pitch me so I can hear what you're saying, and let me just charge you $500 so I can tune a little bit of your presentation?
For sure. So my philosophy, Ed, because I work with a lot of incubators, that's how I get a lot of my tech CEO clients,
Yeah,
is I actually don't charge for that. So what happens is I'm a pitch judge. Let's say at an incubator, they'll
yeah,
run me through their pitch. I'll point out everything wrong. The only time they pay me is if they want me to write the pitch and coach them one on one privately. Okay, that's where the fees come in. But if
yeah,
somebody messages me and say, "Hey, I have a startup idea and here's my pitch and it's recorded," I'll open the YouTube video, I'll watch 2 minutes of it, and I'll say these are the wrong, and I won't charge them money for it, because reputation is important, right? And
yeah,
everything that
yeah,
that's what we're on. You're not paying me to be on this podcast; it's just reputation, right? That's how
yeah,
you
yeah.
build reputation and where I've gotten where I am in my life. So that's the one piece. In terms of advice, though, for pitching. Let's start with the basics. So this stuff doesn't cost you money. It's just founders don't do it, and I think
Yeah.
it's really dumb.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you why it's dumb. Because the investing community is very tiny. Everyone knows each other. Okay, there's only so many people who can invest a few hundred grand or a few $1 million in startups. It's not a million people, okay?
Yeah.
Like we're talking 10,000, maybe 100,000 people. This is a small community. Most of them know each other, which means if you mess up in front of a venture capitalist, you're going to mess up in front of all of them. They're all going to know. But the opposite is also true. If you do really well, everyone's also going to know. So that's the double, kind of the double standard. So what
Mhm.
does that mean? That means prepare your ass off. Okay, prepare. Like the question drill exercise I just taught. Most people don't do it. It's not hard. 5 minutes a day, one question about your business. Do that. If you do that exercise, doesn't cost you any money,
Mhm.
you'll be a lot more prepared, because a lot of these VC meetings is not you pitching. That's maybe 10% of the meeting. Most of the meeting is them asking you questions. What do you think about this? What's your point of view about the future? If you can't answer those questions well, people will not be impressed. So you need to do the question drill exercise. That's number one. My second, let me keep it simple for today. The second piece of advice I would have is to do the random word exercise a lot.
Mhm.
And the reason is because, you pick an octopus and you do random presentation, is because it helps you deal with uncertainty. So when you get the random question, you can stay calm. You can stay calm, right? So, like, for example, I remember I was doing a due diligence a few years ago. I won't name the company, but the two founders were dating. Okay. So, and we knew that. We knew that. And they knew that. Like, it was Trent. They got the money. It's fine. But one of the questions we asked them was, like, what happens if you two break up? Which is a fair question to ask in a due diligence. Like, what happens to the company? And they answered really well because they were prepared for it. They
You
said,
all
look,
prepare, yeah, yeah.
it's professional first. If this thing doesn't go, and they've been fine. Like, the business has took it off and they've done just fine. There's no problem. But as an investor, we're going to ask you the question. But if you don't prepare for that question, you look like a doofus in front of the people. Like, it's not good. So that's advice number 2: is do the random word exercise. It'll help you deal with uncertainty. Number 2. And then the third advice I would give you is to write out the pitch. And the reason you want to write it out is not to memorize it, but to help you structure your thoughts. Because a lot of people, a lot of founders, they don't add traction in their pitch. Traction just means the progress that you've already made, even if it's a little. You want to communicate that progress. Okay, we've already raised $50,000. We already have 15 customers. Because what you do with that, even if 15 isn't a big number, you're showing investors that you're actually getting stuff done
Yeah.
instead of just an idea. And that already puts you ahead of 90% of people.
Mhm. That's so awesome. That's so awesome. So they can, so for founders who are listening, they can kind of find, like, find Brenden, even just kind of not just sending you a pitch deck in video, but they can just kind of even send you the pitch deck, maybe kind of review and just kind of give them suggestion, kind of be like, hey, do this, do that, and then from there, kind of pick it up and then maybe help them write a pitch deck. Let's do this. And before we go, can you summarize, instead of me just kind of summarizing it, can you summarize who's Brenden and what is Master Talk?
For sure.
And how can they find you? Yeah, let's
For
just go.
sure. For
Yeah,
sure. It was great. It was great talking to you, man. Always a pleasure.
yeah.
So two ways to keep in touch. One is the YouTube channel. Just
Mhm.
go to Master Talk in one word. That YouTube channel has hundreds of free videos that you can get and have access to. That's one.
Yeah.
Two is come to my free training. So I do a free training on Zoom. My next one starts in an hour for
Mhm.
those of you who are watching this live.
Yeah.
So you can still join for that. It's a Zoom call. And it's a 90-minute meeting. We go through a ton of communication tips, and I coach people for free on that call. And that's rockstarcommunicator.com. So if you join that call, those are the two best ways to
Rockstar
keep in touch.
Communicator. Yep. Mhm. All right. Perfect. Rockstarcommunicator.com. And also on YouTube, you can just search Master Talk. Brenden, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I know you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate for just taking the time to chat with me, man.
Hey, likewise, man. You're just as busy as I am, so I appreciate your time as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Just give me a second, my friend.